The beam of the phone flashlight shook violently in the dark. Down on his hands and knees, on the cold, uneven dirt floor of the tractor shed, Alex was hyperventilating. His breathing was shallow, catching painfully in his throat as his bare hands clawed frantically through a sickening mixture of thick black engine grease, decaying wet leaves, and compacted mud. His fingernails scraped against the heavy rubber treads of the broken tractor tire, coming away blackened and sore. Just 50 yards away, warm yellow light spilled from the windows of their wooden house. Tu Na was inside with little Henry. In Alex's mind, the romantic evening he had meticulously planned for months was rapidly disintegrating into a waking nightmare. He had bought a simple, beautiful gold ring. It was meant to be the final piece of their family's puzzle, a quiet promise of permanent security after years of relentless farm work. But the farm had intervened. The tractor broke down, he rushed in to fix a leaking valve, and somewhere in this dark, suffocating mess, the ring slipped out of his pocket. Welcome back to the farm. If you've spent any time following Alex and Tu Na, you know that building a life from the soil is never a perfectly curated picture. It is hard, unpredictable, and often messy work. But what happens when the mess of daily life threatens to swallow the most important promise you've ever tried to make? Alex wasn't just looking for jewelry lost in the dirt. As the cold dampness of the shed seeped deeper into his bones, a quiet, terrifying thought began to paralyze him. What if losing this ring is a bad omen for our entire future? The contrast between the chaotic shed and the rest of the farm was sharp. Outside, insects began their rhythmic humming. The bamboo gate swayed softly, and the earthy scent of wood smoke drifted from the outdoor kitchen. It was the ordinary rhythm of a peaceful life they had fought hard to build. Inside the shed, time stopped. Alex dragged his grease-stained palms over the dirt, pressing his cheek close to the oily ground, praying for a tiny glint of gold to catch the harsh light of his phone screen. Every passing second felt like a physical weight. A few dozen yards away, Tu Na stood silently on the porch, wiping a ceramic porridge bowl with a cotton cloth. At her feet, little Henry was lining up his muddy rubber sandals. It was a perfectly ordinary family moment, but Tu Na's eyes were fixed on the deep shadows of the yard. She knew her husband intimately. She knew the defeated angle of his shoulders when a crop failed, and she knew the stiff way he walked when he carried a hidden burden. Right now, observing him from afar, an old, deeply familiar ache tightened her chest. Alex emerged from the shed, posture rigid. Instead of walking toward the warm kitchen, he marched to the outdoor sink, avoiding the porch entirely. Tu Na watched quietly as the cold well water rushed over his hands. He was scrubbing them raw with punishing energy. The heavy scent of grease drifted to the porch, mixing unnaturally with the aroma of rice broth. She set the bowl down. The sudden silence between them felt incredibly thick, louder than the evening crickets. In a marriage built on survival, sudden silence is a blaring siren. Tu Na's mind raced to the darkest corners of their past. Was it the business? Were they facing financial ruin again? Alex violently dried his bruised hands and forced an unconvincing smile as he walked up the steps. He paused to pat Henry's head, but his eyes darted away the moment they met Tu Na's. Mumbling a fragmented excuse about organizing tool racks, he quickly brushed past her into the house. Tu Na didn't follow. She looked down at Henry, who was holding up a small green sandal, oblivious to the heavy tension that had settled over their safe home. Taking a slow, deliberate breath, the evening air suddenly felt very cold. The fear of repeating past struggles was a quiet ghost that never truly left the farm. And tonight, she was certain that ghost was standing right in her kitchen. The evening shadows stretched long and thin across the yard, slowly swallowing the vibrant green of the vegetable patch. Tu Na couldn't stay in the kitchen. The suffocating weight of unspoken worries pushed her out the back door, her bare feet stepping softly onto the damp earth. She needed to know how bad it was. If the business was failing again, they needed to face it together, just as they always had in the early difficult years. Near the edge of the bamboo fence, Ba Huang was finishing the day's work. The older woman knelt among the heavy tomato vines, her worn gardening gloves gently placing the last of the harvest into a woven bamboo basket. The sharp snap of the stems was the only sound breaking the evening quiet. Tu Na approached slowly, the cool dirt settling between her toes. "Auntie," she started, her voice low and tight with hesitation. "Did Alex say anything to you today? About the buyers? About the farm accounts?" Ba Huang paused, a plump red tomato resting heavily in her dirt-caked palm. She looked up, her brow furrowing in genuine confusion under her conical hat. "The accounts?" "No, child. The farm is fine. The city deliveries went out exactly on time this morning." Tu Na frowned, the invisible knot in her chest tightening further. "Then why is he acting like the sky is falling? He's hiding something in that shed. He won't even look at me." Ba Huang shifted her weight, brushing a damp, stray leaf from her knee. She let out a heavy sigh, her eyes darting toward the darkened shed before looking back at Tu Na. The older woman realized the sheer gravity of Tu Na's fear. "He didn't lose a contract, Tu Na." Ba Huang's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, instantly regretting her own loose tongue. "He's just tearing the shed apart, looking for something shiny. Something tiny he said he bought for you months ago. It slipped right out of his pocket when he was rushing to fix the intake valve." The words hung in the cool air, entirely changing the shape of the evening. The crushing fear of financial ruin vanished, instantly replaced by a sharp, protective ache in Tu Na's throat. He wasn't hiding a failure, he was mourning a ruined surprise. He was carrying the heavy weight of a broken romantic moment, punishing himself entirely alone in the dark. Tu Na didn't wait. She didn't retreat to the house to put on protective boots, and she didn't wait for him to come inside and confess his mistake. She turned her back on the quiet, safe garden and marched straight toward the gaping black mouth of the tractor shed. She grabbed a heavy metal flashlight from the porch hook. As she stepped over the threshold, the thick metallic smell of diesel fuel and damp earth hit her instantly. The beam of her light sliced through the darkness, immediately catching a frantic, exhausted figure. Alex was still on his knees. His shirt was ruined, soaked through with nervous sweat and black motor oil. He was dragging his bare fingers through a thick layer of compacted mud near the rear tire, his movements jerky and desperate. When the harsh beam of Tu Na's flashlight hit him, he flinched, throwing his bruised arm up to shield his eyes. "Tu Na, don't," his voice cracked, raw and thick with a profound, quiet embarrassment. "Don't come in here, it's filthy. Just give me 10 more minutes." He looked entirely broken, a proud, capable man reduced to begging for time in the dirt because he desperately wanted to give his wife a flawless memory. He wanted to offer her a fairy tale, and instead, all he had was a greasy floor. Tu Na looked down at him, taking in his scraped knuckles and the sheer defeat in his posture. She didn't offer an empty word of comfort from the clean safety of the doorway. Instead, she stepped directly into the dark puddle of leaked oil. She smoothly rolled up the sleeves of her clean linen shirt, lowered the flashlight, and dropped hard onto her knees right beside him. The freezing mud instantly soaked through her pants, staining her skin. "What are you doing?" Alex gasped, horrified as he watched her plunge her clean hands directly into the rotting leaves and thick black grease. "It's ruined. I wanted it to be perfect for you." Tu Na didn't stop digging, her shoulder pressed firmly against his as they knelt together under the massive, imposing weight of the broken machine. "Our life is messy, Alex," she said softly, her hands sifting through the dark soil with a steady, practiced rhythm. "We don't live in a perfect world, but whatever we drop in the mud, we clean it up together." They fell into a deep, working silence, two beams of light crossing in the dark, two pairs of hands digging through the sharp debris of their daily life, searching for a single promise hidden in the dirt. 10 minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The ambient chill of the evening seeped deep into their bones, but neither of them stopped digging. Tu Na's fingers were entirely coated in thick black engine oil, her nails packed tightly with wet earth and decaying leaves. Beside her, Alex's frantic, desperate energy had finally burned out, replaced by a profound, quiet exhaustion. He sat back on his heels, his chest heaving, his broad shoulders slumping under the heavy, imposing shadow of the broken tractor. "It's gone, Na," Alex whispered, his voice catching in the damp air. The pride that usually kept him steady had completely fractured. "I saved for it for an entire year. I just wanted to give you one beautiful memory that wasn't tied to dirt, or stress, or farm work." Tu Na reached out, resting her heavy, grease-stained hand directly over his trembling fingers. "We built our entire life from this dirt, Alex," she answered softly. "There is no shame in it. You are my security." Just as the heavy, quiet reality of the loss began to settle over them, a small, rhythmic slapping sound broke the heavy silence of the shed. They both turned. Standing near the wide doorway, bathed in the faint, distant glow of the kitchen light, was little Henry. He was wearing his oversized green rubber sandals, his tiny hands clutching the edge of the wooden doorframe. He looked at his parents, completely unfazed by the muddy disaster. Slowly, he took 2 steps into the shed, squatted down near a rusted, discarded oil pan, and pointed a tiny, chubby finger at the edge of a muddy puddle. "Shiny," Henry stated simply, his voice echoing lightly in the dark space. Alex froze. He scrambled forward, his knees scraping painfully against the rough dirt. There, half buried in a foul mix of rainwater and dark diesel grease, catching the absolute edge of Tu Na's flashlight beam, was a tiny, unnatural rim of gold. He pulled it from the muck with trembling, blackened fingers. He didn't wipe it off. He didn't suggest they go back inside to wash up. And the carefully scripted, romantic speech he had practiced for months was entirely forgotten. Still kneeling on the damp, cold floor of the tractor shed, covered head to toe in dark grime, Alex turned to his wife. He looked directly into Tu Na's tired eyes, held up the mud-caked gold ring, and simply asked her to marry him. Tu Na didn't hesitate. She laughed, a bright, beautiful sound so full of sudden relief and overwhelming warmth that it chased the heavy chill right out of the dark shed. She said yes, reaching out to pull his messy, exhausted face into a deep, lingering kiss. Henry giggled from the doorway, clapping his small hands at the strange, dirty game his parents were playing. When they finally walked back across the yard, carrying Henry together, the warm yellow light of the wooden house felt entirely different. It wasn't just a simple shelter from the daily work anymore. It was a permanent sanctuary they had finally secured together. The perfect time, they realized, is simply the time you have. A strong family isn't built on flawless, curated memories or perfectly timed surprises. It is built in the grit, in the shadows, and in the quiet, absolute certainty that no matter how deep the mess gets, you will never have to dig through it alone. Have you ever had a perfect plan fall apart only to find something better in the mess? Share your story with us in the comments below. If this moment reminded you of what truly matters in a family, please leave a comment to let Alex and Tu Na know they aren't alone.